During reading strategies, we will cover 4 strategies. There are more, but for math, these seem to be the most realistic. For each of the strategies, you have to pay attention to the examples in the book and the vocabulary. Have you ever been able to solve a math problem even though you didn't know what the instructions were asking? Well, that's probably because you recognize the problem but not the vocab. By putting in effort to learn the vocab, you will find more ease and success with math. The vocab doesn't go away, so learning it as you go will make your life easier and when you see it in another class. It'll make your life easier when you see it in another math class. It's also time to make sure you look at the pictures and the text on the side of the page. They're there to provide more learning opportunities. Let's discuss one more thing you should do while you read before we discuss the strategies. I want you to talk to the reading. This will encourage you to reread and attempt to solve problems with the book, leading to a deeper understanding of the material. You don't have to say these things out loud, but in your head, ask these questions or say these statements to engage yourself in the reading. So you'll say things like, "Book, how did you get that?" Or, "Yeah, I've heard something like that before. It reminds me of," fill in the blank. Let me look through your work/explanation again. They usually leave out steps in the book. You might ask, "What does that word mean?" And continue reading to see if they explain it. And then last but not least, ask it like, "I need more information about blank." So when you continue reading, you know that you're looking for that information. So let's go over the strategies. There are 4 strategies. I want you to choose one. Each week, I'll be asking you to turn in with your packet, either your during reading strategy or your post reading strategy. So make sure first name, last name, my name, and pre-algebra end up on it. So let's go through it. The first one is take notes on the reading. So notes are a great resource for review. So whenever you need to review the material or you're doing work, so have them right next to you, and for help on assignments. And they usually require less reading than the text itself, so that's the added benefit. So instead of rereading the book, you just reread your notes, like, "Oh, okay, this can help me do the problem now." So the downside of this strategy is that when, I was reading in the wrong place. I like Cornell-style notes because it provides space for questions and reminds you to summarize in the end. The summary in the end is the post-reading strategy. That is my preference, so anytime I talk to you, I'll probably nudge you a little bit to do Cornell-style, and we'll see what that looks like in a sec. So while you're doing your notes, you're writing down the definitions of vocabulary words, you're writing down the practice problems, so the problems in the book, anything that pertains to the main topic, and you're writing down your questions. So that's one strategy. The other strategy is writing on the text itself. In high school, the textbooks aren't yours, so don't write in them. Since writing in the text is an effective strategy, I'm attaching copies of the text so that you can write on them. The downside of this strategy is that when you need to reference your notes, you have to dig through your book/papers, right? So with writing notes on them, that's usually like a shorter summary of the reading. And with this strategy, you have to go through, you have to find them, and then usually make your way through the whole reading to see the things that you've underlined and circled. The upside is that it might take less time than actually writing them all out. Okay, here's how to mark up the text. So on the margin, so that's the blank sides of the page, but also too, it's your copy in the packet. So if you want to write on top of it, by all means, just as long as it's not gonna disrupt your view from reading it later. But write down your questions, redo the example problems, highlight or circle vocabulary words, their definitions, and main topics, and write notes about how it's connected to what you already know, right? This reminds me of blank. You're activating that prior knowledge that we talked about in the pre-reading. The third strategy is concept definition map. You'll identify the main topic, include the definitions, examples, and what it's like. The fourth strategy is the Ferrer model. Identify the characteristics, definitions, examples, and non-examples of the main point. So let's look at what each of those could look like. Okay, here's the Cornell notes where you would take notes This is what a second page would look like. The first page, which we saw with the pre-reading strategies, it has a place for your name and it has a place to put Hodge, pre-algebra, and to label your notes. I should have done that on this one too, but I kind of was seeing them as a two-piece. So notice my little bullet points, information I wrote down that I thought was important. I recopied the notes and I even added extra. If you look in the reading that you'll see next week, they don't have those arrows showing, like, right, you start from the second number and you move to the first number to identify the sign of your difference. So I added those details in there, and then I ended off with more important information. So this is what taking notes could look like. This is what writing on the text could look like. Please excuse my sloppy writing. This was me writing on the computer, but even though I did not redo the example, I was writing over it to get that practice in. I wrote down extra notes, see up top and right there. So that's an example of the second strategy of writing in the text. This is an example of the concept definition map. Notice in the middle, our topic is subtracting negative numbers. What is it? The definition of what it's like, distance, debt, opposite of left, which equals right. And then these are examples from the book down here. And this is something that you would draw on your paper. So you might decide to draw another line in another box. This is the Frere model. So you draw a real big box in the middle. That's the title of the reading. You have characteristics. Here I put negative numbers. We know they're less than 0, difference, anything that would pertain. The definition in your own words. Like I included information like, the sign, figure out which way you would walk from the second number to the first to figure out the sign. Examples, so you have a number example, and these are things that you're coming up with, and then more information. So like -3 minus a -2 is like I owe $3 and I got rid of $2 of that debt. Right? This was for coffee, so borrowing money for coffee. A non-example, well, it's supposed to be subtracting negative numbers, and here we have adding negative numbers. So there's that difference in there, so we know it's a non-example. And then it also relates to my life. Like I don't like to owe people money, so I'm not looking to add more debt to my ledger. Oh, and that was the last of the during reading strategies. So remember to choose one of the 4, and while you were reading, pay attention to the pictures and the vocabulary, and write down notes.